Hey guys, today I'm continuing my series on eating whole foods plant-based on the Weight Watchers Purple Plan. Today I'm going to be talking about the starches and whole grain pastas that are part of the 0 point list, because I've had several people who have contacted me and told me that when they tried to do the Purple Plan, they overconsumed these foods and had some concern about the fact that they were on the 0 point list. So the greatest complaint that I've heard is that Weight Watchers doesn't really give any boundaries as to how many of the different various foods on the 0 point list you should eat. And if you're not counting calories, it is very possible, especially as a whole foods plant-based eater, to overconsume the calories that you should be eating in order to produce weight loss. So on the Weight Watchers website, they say things like, if you normally eat one banana, don't go and start eating 4 or 5. That's kind of the boundary they're giving. It's not super helpful. So when I first kind of approached the Purple Plan, I had to look at that list and say, which of these foods can I eat as much as I want to eat? And which of the foods on the list do I need to be a little bit more cautious? Now, if you're coming from an animal-based standard American diet and you're given this list of foods that are considered 0 points, and they're things like whole wheat pasta when you've already been eating white semolina pasta, or, it has brown rice versus jasmine rice or basmati rice, you might be able to eat these foods and not overconsume them because they don't taste as good to you. But for people like us who eat whole foods plant-based, we really love our potatoes and our bananas and our oats, but we have to remember that just because they say 0 points, that doesn't mean 0 calories. So I think Weight Watchers created this list primarily for people who are not necessarily whole foods plant-based vegans. They created it for people coming off the standard American diet who were not eating whole plant foods all of the time. So when you eat those foods that are on the 0 point list, those are going to be the lower in caloric density, and then you have to use your choice points if you want to eat things that are higher calorically dense, like processed food or nut butters or sugar or things like that. So let's first talk about starches, because starches are super, super important in a whole foods plant-based diet. They make you feel very satiated. Many of them have resistant starch, which slows down the absorption of the glucose in your bloodstream, which is good, very important, especially for diabetics, but they're not super nutrient dense. So they do have nutrients, but they're not as nutrient dense as the non-starchy vegetables and fruits. So we need to have them to feel satiated, but they shouldn't necessarily be a huge amount of our plate. We need to have the more nutrient dense foods as the greater portion of our plate. And those foods, thankfully, are the lowest in caloric density, and they're really going to promote weight loss. So starches and whole grain pastas without any toppings, sauces, condiments, seasonings are not all that compelling. If you think about it, you could probably sit down and eat a half a cup of cooked oatmeal with nothing on it, but would you really want to eat a lot more than that? Chances are no. So the problem comes in when we enhance the flavor of these starches, we tend to eat more of them. So I would say if you're a person that can eat the whole plant starches with no calorically dense toppings on them, or even with any spices, to be honest with you, you probably could eat just the amount that your body called for and you could still lose weight. I think when we add those spices and those seasonings and those dipping sauces and things like that, it makes it a lot harder to stay within the normal range for what you need to lose weight. So let's say that you love baked potato night and you would normally have a couple of baked potatoes with some steamed broccoli and maybe some unsweetened yogurt as your sour cream and maybe some Whole Foods cheesy sauce and some chives and maybe even some vegan bacon bits that you made. Truthfully, you don't necessarily know how many calories you're eating in the potatoes themselves unless you've weighed or measured them before. So it's not surprising that when people actually start to add up their starches, they find that sometimes in a meal they may be having 600 or 700 calories of potatoes and not even realizing it. If your goal is to have a 500 calorie meal, you may have to at first figure out, well, how many calories of my starch can I have along with all the other things I want to have? Because even your potato cheese sauce that you might be making, your veggie cheese sauce, that can also have quite a bit of calories in it because you've blended all that down. And even though it's all whole plant foods, it has some salt in it usually. I know mine does. And it can be really easy to kind of glop that on top of your already maybe 400 or more calories of potatoes that you have sitting in on your plate. So you might be saying in your head, Mrs. Plant, why would I do Weight Watchers if you're telling me that I have to count calories? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you just can't consume the whole plant starches and pastas with reckless abandon. They still have calories, and if you consistently eat over your caloric intake for losing weight, you're not going to lose weight. So everybody has to figure out their own measurements for what allows you to continue having weight loss. But for me, I have kind of these set amounts that I eat when I eat a meal with starches or with even pasta. And so any kind of starch, potatoes, rice, corn, quinoa, any of that. So for me, with potatoes, I'll eat 200 to 300 grams of potatoes, because a good way to think about this is that potatoes are approximately 100 calories per 100 grams. So if you think about it that way, if you measure it, it's 300 grams, it's going to be just under 300 calories. So that kind of helps you. And then I'll eat 1 cup of rice, a cup of quinoa. I usually eat a little bit less than a cup of corn, so about 3/4 of a cup of corn or an ear of corn, half a cup of dry oats. And then when you cook it, it depends. Sometimes I'm adding a banana in there and it can make it a lot more floofy, but definitely a half a cup dry. So you need to figure out what are the amount of starches you can eat and still continue to lose weight. Now, if you weigh over, 175 pounds, you probably can eat more than I can eat. So I usually say, for things like pasta, start with what the package says. So if the package says 2 ounces of dry pasta, go ahead and measure that out, make it, eat it with your non-starchy vegetables and a dessert of some fruit. And if that's not filling enough, next time bump it up a little bit. I found that for myself and my husband, 2.5 ounces is great for us. That's what we usually eat, 2.5 ounces of a whole grain pasta. So it'll be brown rice pasta or whole wheat pasta or a bean pasta, because it feels like just a little bit more than the 2 ounces and it's not that much more calories. So once I figure out what my starches are going to be in a meal, of course, I'm going to add some kind of a legume. So I'm going to have maybe anywhere from a half to 3/4 a cup of some kind of beans or lentils. I'll have 3 to 3.5 ounces of protein from like tofu or tempeh. And then sometimes I'll have edamame or peas. So along with the non-starchy vegetables and the starches and the beans, you should have a nice filling meal. So just to kind of recap here, I think there's always been a misnomer that you can eat as much of the whole plant foods as you want and you're going to lose weight. And I absolutely don't believe in this theory. I believe that if you're eating more calories than your body is expending, you're not going to lose weight. I think there's a lot of scientific evidence to prove that that's true. So what do we need to do? We need to decide, what is our plate going to look like? And we need to take into consideration initially the amount of calories that we need in order to lose weight so that we can make our plates properly planned. And once you get that kind of in place, then you know how much of the 0 point foods you should be having in a meal. You've tested it, you know you can lose weight with the amount that you've chosen, and then go forth, enjoy. 0 points doesn't mean no calories, and I really have to say that a bunch of times. It just means Weight Watchers wants to steer us in the direction of choosing those foods over the foods that we would normally need to use our choice points for. And if you don't have a lot of choice points, like I don't, you really do have to eat the whole foods. And primarily, I want to eat more of the non-starchy vegetables and fruits because those are going to give me more bang for my buck. I'll be able to eat more of them for less calories and potentially lose more weight. So I hope this helps you guys. I don't want to make this more difficult than it is. I just really want you guys to think about it before you just dive in and then find out that you're not losing any weight on this plan. For some people, the blue plan might be a better plan for you because the starches, and actually, sorry, the blue plan and the green plan have the same thing. The starches and the pastas are not 0 points. They require you to actually use your choice points. And to be honest with you, at some point, I may actually move to one of those plans, probably the blue plan, because I like to see, how many choice points would I have had to use for this amount of starch or this amount of pasta, because I find now I really don't have any idea. I just stick to my amounts that I normally eat, and we'll see. I'm not losing as much weight as I probably could be because I'm kind of doing things really similarly to the way I was doing them before. I'm making some little tweaks here and there, and those are helping me to lose anywhere from a half pound to, 2 pounds a week. But I think it's going to take a little bit more vigilance on my part, maybe even counting those starches and pastas to really get to my target caloric intake that I need to consistently lose, 1 to 2 pounds every single week until I get down to my goal weight. Anyway, if you are not already in Mrs. Plant community on Facebook, make sure that you come and join our group. We have a lot of people that are doing all different kinds of things, everything from doing just straight up whole foods, plant-based, no oil. Some people are doing Weight Watchers. We have lots of different people doing different things, and it's a non-judgmental group where people are really providing support and super inspirational ideas. So check that out when you get a chance if you're not already in the group. And if you would like for me to discuss any other topics related to whole foods plant-based on Weight Watchers Purple Plan, please put them down in the comments below, because I would love to do another video to help educate or to inspire you guys in whatever way I can. Hope you guys have a great day.